I'm 78 now, and when people find out I live alone, there's usually a pause. The kind of pause where they're deciding what to say next without sounding rude. Then it comes, dressed up as concern. How do you manage? Doesn't it get quiet? Don't you ever wish you had someone? I used to answer quickly, almost defensively, like I owed an explanation. These days, I let the silence sit a little longer before I speak, just because I'm no longer in a hurry to reassure anyone. My wife, Margaret, died when I was 62. We'd been married for nearly 40 years. Not the kind of marriage people write books about. Just steady, predictable. We knew each other's habits so well that conversation wasn't always necessary. She liked her toast darker than I did. I liked the radio on in the mornings. She hummed while folding laundry. I whistled when I couldn't find my keys. That was our life. When she passed, it wasn't loud grief that stayed with me. It was the quiet adjustments, the empty passenger seat, the second pillow that stayed cool all night, the way I'd still slow down at the grocery store because she used to walk slower than me. You don't notice those things disappearing one at a time. You notice when they're all gone. The first year was clumsy. I'd forget why the house felt different and then remember all over again. But I'm not someone who sits still in sadness for long. I started building a routine, not because it healed anything, but because it gave my days shape. Mornings at the same diner, a short walk after lunch, reading before bed instead of watching television. The rhythm mattered. Eventually, living alone stopped feeling temporary. It became normal, comfortable even. I learned what kind of quiet I liked and what kind I didn't. Silence in the morning felt peaceful. Silence at night felt heavy at first, then familiar. I filled the hours with small things, library volunteering, fixing things that didn't really need fixing, talking to strangers about nothing in particular. Then other people started worrying. My daughter would call more often, asking what I'd done that day, as if she were checking to see if I existed between phone calls. Neighbors would ask if I had plans for the weekend and look unsettled when I said no. A friend from church suggested I join a singles group, though I hadn't said I was looking. At some point, I began to wonder if I was missing something. Not because I felt unhappy, but because so many people seemed convinced I should be. That's when Linda came into my life. We met at the library, where I volunteered. She had a dry sense of humor and spoke plainly, which I appreciated. No pretending, no performance. We started talking during my breaks, then having coffee afterward. It didn't feel like a decision. It just happened. At first, I liked having something to look forward to. I liked being asked questions about myself again. I liked the idea that someone noticed whether I showed up or not. There's a comfort in that, especially when you've spent years quietly passing through your own days. We took things slow, though slow means something different at our age. Lunch dates, short drives, sitting across from each other, talking about the past without getting lost in it. It was easy to tell people I was seeing someone. They seemed relieved, like a problem had been solved. But gradually, the ease slipped. I started noticing how often I checked the clock, how often I rearranged my plans to keep things smooth. If I wanted a day to myself, I felt like I had to justify it, even when no explanation was asked for. I began to feel watched in a way I hadn't realized I disliked. There was nothing dramatic about it. No arguments, no raised voices, just a steady sense of obligation creeping into places that used to feel open. If I skipped an evening call, I felt guilty. If I chose to stay home instead of going out, I felt like I was letting someone down. The strange part was how tired I became. Not physically, emotionally. I'd come home from seeing her and feel like I needed to sit in the dark for a while, just to reset myself. That was new. I remember one afternoon clearly. I'd planned to spend it reading and doing nothing else. No noise, no schedule. Linda called and suggested we drive out of town for dinner. I hesitated, then agreed, even though something in me resisted. The whole drive I felt irritated with myself. Not with her, with myself. That's when it hit me. I wasn't choosing this life. I was drifting into it because it seemed expected. Money became another quiet worry. I'd lived carefully for years, knowing exactly what I could afford and what I couldn't. Now there were dinners, outings, small expenses that added up. I didn't say anything. I told myself it was normal. But late at night, I'd do the math in my head and feel uneasy. The moment that clarified everything came unexpectedly. One evening, Linda talked about the future. Not in grand terms, just casually mentioned how nice it would be to share space someday. Not tomorrow, just someday. I smiled and nodded, but inside, my chest tightened. I pictured my mornings changing, my routines bending, my quiet shrinking. And instead of feeling comforted, I felt panicked. That night, alone in my living room, I realized something important. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of losing myself. Ending things wasn't easy. There were tears, confusion, a sense of failure, not because the relationship was bad, but because I couldn't explain my choice in a way that satisfied anyone else. My daughter didn't understand. A friend told me I was being stubborn. For a few weeks, I questioned myself. Then something simple happened. I woke up one morning with no messages to return, no plans to adjust, no expectations waiting for me. I made my coffee the way I like it. I sat by the window longer than usual, and I felt calm. Not happy in a loud way, just steady. Since then, my life has settled back into itself. I walk when I want. I talk when I feel like it. I spend time with people I care about without feeling pulled in directions that don't suit me. I still get lonely sometimes. I won't pretend I don't. But loneliness passes. Losing yourself doesn't. What I've learned is this. Being alone isn't the same as being empty. And companionship isn't always the same as connection. Sometimes it's just noise that fills space you actually need. These years feel valuable to me now, not because they're perfect, but because they're mine. I don't want to spend them explaining, adjusting, or shrinking to fit a role someone else feels more comfortable seeing me in. So when people ask if I wish I had someone, I answer honestly. I have myself. And right now, that's enough.